So you have your daily rider, you have your dual sport, and you have your fun hooligan bike, and you need to buy some boots. And I'm looking at buying a new set of boots, and this is what I ended up with. So let's go through what I have and why I ended up spending more money, and maybe I can save you some. It seems like whenever you learn something new, you're always going to be spending more money, because as you learn what you purchased isn't what you needed. So a long time ago, I bought these, and I forgot, I think these are Bilts when I first started riding. And I will tell you, I still wear these occasionally when I go to a track day and we're doing a total control track day with the regular bikes. And because they're good, they're leather, they offer a lot of protection and a lot of control. But this, other than the leather for abrasion, doesn't do a whole lot for protecting your leg or your ankle on anything. And, you know, Bilt gets a bad rep, but in all honesty, it's not the best boot in the world if you want to do anything other than some light street riding or maybe a easy track day. So then I was living in England. I was driving around Scotland and Ireland and Wales, and I had myself a Royal Enfield Himalayan, and I needed a bike that was going to be able to do some off-roading. And most of the roads that I was doing in England were mostly like country lanes, some green lanes, and then, you know, big trips on gravel and shale. And somebody suggested to get the Forma Adventure boot. And I tried a couple, and I will say that I absolutely loved this boot. And the reason I loved it is because it was so comfortable. And from everything I knew 4 or 5 years ago about riding in a boot, I wanted to have it to be leather. I wanted to have a lot of abrasion. I wanted to have a little bit of protection that was a little bit higher. It cinched down, which gave me a little bit of torsion control, a little bit of safety that way on the ankle. It had the little pucks. For some reason, everybody keeps selling the pucks as an awesome thing. I guess if you hit right there and you're perfect, that's great. The benefit, incredibly comfortable. The downside, if you're doing anything other than the country lane, this thing doesn't have a whole lot of protection other than this upscaled leather. And that's really what they're good for. I think that they are fantastic boots if you are doing 90% on road and maybe 10% you are going to be doing a quick dirt lane to get back to the road again. But that's the Forma Adventure. I know a lot of people will say that they're fantastic, and I'll be absolutely honest. You get on Facebook and you start talking to professionals. There are guys who are like, that's all I ride, that's all you need. And maybe that's true. I don't know. I am not the god of motorcycles, but I did not feel when I came back to the States and I was riding through Allegheny Forest and I was doing Soggy Bottom and I was doing rallies, and I felt that these were really going to be doing me very well. So somebody said, you need to get yourself the Forma Evo Terra. And I will tell you, they really sold me on the very fact that they had this flexion control on the boot. It was comfortable. I liked the adventure, is how comfortable it was. It was much taller. It was waterproof on the inside. The leather, I still think leather is the best. It has all of the things that look like an adventure boot and all the things that look like it might even be almost motocross worthy. Is it comfortable? Straight out of the box, it was like wearing a pair of slippers. It was super, super nice. And I thought that this thing was going to be the end-all be-all of safety. And now I'm shooting with one hand, but even with one hand, you can see that I can start doing the flex and moving the sides. It is not a super duper protective boot if you come off and you're on a GS 1250 and the bike lands on you, or if you get your foot stuck in a rock and it twists. I do not have a lot of faith that this is the boot of boots for wearing that kind of stuff. However, I rode it all last season and all the season before and all the season before that. Most of my roads were the forest fire lanes, and we started doing some ATV trails last year, and that's when I started seeing other people having the bikes go down and crush on them and stuff, and started realizing in my 50s, because a lot of us are older, in my 50s, I could not afford to have a boot let me have my ankle twist and break or crush and break. And if you do a quick Google or YouTube search, you will see lots of people who would have this particular boot, and it was not providing the protection that they thought it was going to. Then I saw Brett Tack's video, and it's not that he's the end-all be-all, but he's pretty good. And he said, look at the website. So I called up Forma, and sure enough, Forma does not recommend this boot when you go off-road. So I needed to get another boot. So this is what I ended up moving from. And then I didn't know what to get. And you think I'm gonna go talk about this one, but I am not. This is what I ended up buying. This is the Forma Predator 2.0. Now I got this because I'll admit I get a professional discount from Forma being military. So it's not like they're paying me to do it and stuff. I just military people happen to get a discount. And so I bought it because I wanted the most protection I possibly could. And it's a pretty looking boot. But here's the trouble. You're always compromising comfort for safety. And sometimes I'm starting to think that maybe safety is making you unsafe. What do I mean by that? Let's talk about this boot real quick and why it's pretty awesome. It has huge protection here for if you want to get hurt. That's really hard molded plastic. Don't let me get into the specs on that. You can look it up. It has dual pivot points on here. And those dual pivot points give you a lot of movement while keeping the rigidity. It has a lot of protection up the back. It has some movement, has some ability to move here and articulate. It has some neat features. The hasps here, let's see if I can get a focus on it. The hasps here are really neat because you just have to press that down and that lifts it. You can do it, which means that it locks down and you're not going to get it unlocked sometime when you're actually doing the opening and closing. And when you do open it, you can actually open this. And I did this in a previous video. I'll just open this up now so you can see it. But for getting it in and out and for comfort, this is surprisingly comfortable. So in here, you can see that there are ways to adjust this to make it bigger and smaller. And this whole thing can separate and you can pull this back. I'm doing this in my garage, so sorry that I'm not Revzilla and I can do fancy stuff. But this entire thing can move back, which means you just slide into the inner piece, and it actually fits really comfortable. And I walked around in it for 10 minutes and it was pretty nice. I was okay until I just stood on the bike and I stood on the DR650 and I didn't want to ruin it or anything else, but this is the only way I could ever shift would be to use the edge of this welting, because the boot is just so big and cumbersome. You can't feel anything of the bike. And it's very, very difficult. I'm sure one of the problems that you have is that coming from a street bike and then going to adventure bikes and moving to smaller and smaller bikes, I did not come from a dirt bike background, and I did not grow up using MX boots. So perhaps I'm not the best person. If you were used to an MX boot, I think this is awesome. If you're not, this is gonna be really big and unwieldy. And so I had to go make a decision of what I was gonna get, if I was gonna keep this or not. And sure enough, a marketplace, somebody who had bought the boot, got the wrong size, got themselves hurt and missed the window of the return, ended up having a Tech 7, Alpinestars Tech 7 Enduro. And this boot is got a lot of the stuff that I need. It's got all of the ankle protection. It's hard to do the twists and stuff for crushing on the sides and do the flexation and torsion. It has some really cool features here to keep some protection there for hyperflexion and stuff. And I put it on and it was absolutely comfortable. Straight out, not as good as the Formas, but pretty darn good. And I can see why this is the most recommended boot from everybody, because for an adventure rider or a light dual sporter, somebody who's not doing real motocross, this boot actually is pretty impressive. Do I worry about if it's safe enough? Well, compared to the Predator, it's certainly not as safe as I am if I put that Predator 2.0 on. But with that being said, being able to ride, and I'm not worried about walking around. I could walk around those Predators all day if I wanted to. If I want to walk around with the Enduro sole so that it's got some traction, and if I need to pick the bike up in mud and I need to be able to have some flexibility for that, and I want to be able to be comfortable on the bike for 8 hours, this really seems to be a very, very good balance. I can see why many, many people recommend it. And so this is what I ended up with, and this is what I'm going to keep. What are you wearing and why? Does your age or experience or where your philosophies are on safety? I've seen people on Facebook when I was asking people around as a senior ADV page. There are guys that are still using their military combat boots, and they need nothing more than a pair of moccasins and a pair of socks and an old World War II helmet, and that's safety enough for them. And then there are other people who, if you're not in a suit of armor, you're not safe enough. I don't know the answers. I just thought it was interesting because there's got to be other people like me who are trying to figure out what's the best boot for them. It's safety versus comfort, but it doesn't have to be all or one and all of the other. This seemed to be where I'm going to be, and maybe I made a mistake because I've seen plenty of videos of people in their Tech 7s one day and in a cast the next. And maybe nothing will actually protect you. We're always taking our lives in our hands. But this is where I'm going to go for this season, and we'll see later on if I'm going to go back. But I'm sending the Formas back to Forma, and as long as since I didn't ride in it, they said they'd take it back.